Danny Mercer was halfway into the blue recycling dumpster, behind the Jefferson Street parking structure when he heard it. 3 sharp knocks, a pause. Then 3 more. He froze, one knee braced against the dented rim, palms greasy from a takeout bag that still smelled like sesame oil, and listened hard. The sound came again, duller this time, swallowed by sheet metal, a trunk. Somebody was banging from inside a trunk. He dropped back to the concrete, winded from the climb and the sudden shift in adrenaline. It was 10 past midnight, and the structure had that dead late-night echo that made small sounds travel like rumors. The top deck lights buzzed. Somewhere below, a security golf cart rolled a slow patrol and then faded. Danny stood still, scanning. The knocks came once more. 3, pause. 3. Not random. The rhythm had edges. He moved toward the sound. The beige sedan was parked rows over, facing the cinder block wall. No plates on the front, a temporary tag taped to the back window. The trunk sat to millimeters, proud of the seal, like it hadn't latched clean. He smelled vinyl and something chemical like fresh zip ties. When he pressed his ear to the metal, he heard a woman's breath, fast and shallow. Then for faint taps that lined up with the alphabet he remembered from a police ride-along years ago. SOS. He didn't think. He acted. Hey, I hear you, he said, voice low, calm. Don't panic. I'm opening it. He yanked his backpack off, dumped the contents, the thin blanket, a half roll of duct tape, a cheap multi-tool, a water bottle onto the concrete. The multi-tool's little screwdriver was too short for leverage. He dropped to the bumper, slid his fingers under the lip, and felt the emergency release cable through a ragged notch in the liner. Someone had tried to cut it and hadn't finished. Typical. He dug the screwdriver in, twisted, felt the cable catch and pulled hard. The lid popped. A thin woman in a torn black blouse lurched up, wrists cinched with nylon ties. Her mouth was gagged with a strip of gray tape. Her brown hair clung to sweat. Her eyes, sharp and furious and scared, locked on him. For half a heartbeat, Danny saw his own face in the reflection of those eyes. Bearded and older and tired. Then she gasped through the tape and tried to sit up, hitting the lid with her shoulder. Easy, he said. He peeled the tape free in one steady pull. She coughed hard, hauled air, and immediately turned sideways, trying to kick herself free of the trunk. Don't move too fast, you'll slam. She slammed. The lid bounced off the hinge hard enough to rattle the glass. She dragged herself out anyway, boots scraping. Danny cut the ties into clean bites with the multi-tool. She flexed her wrist and hissed at the burn. Thank you, she rasped, voice hoarse. Then her eyes snapped down to his hands and the tool and his backpack, and everything hardened. Hands where I can see them. He raised them. They dumped you here. I heard you. I'm not. She twisted, grabbed her belt instinctive. Even without equipment, then realized her sidearm and radio were gone. She pivoted on her heel anyway, moving him against the concrete wall with the kind of speed you only learn in academy fights. She slammed his shoulder into the cinder block and pinned his wrist. A brand new set of cuffs clicked tight around his right hand and then the other. Where had she gotten those? He saw them hanging from her back pocket, a spare pair, lighter than standard. He hadn't noticed. Officer Leah Hart, she said between breaths, the words automatic. You're under. Not your guy, Danny said, calm on purpose. Look at the latch. He turned his head toward the trunk. See the scratches inside the lid? That's from her, from you, trying to pop it from the inside. The cable's half cut. Check the glue on the tag. They taped it last minute. You saw that on a traffic stop last week. Same thing. You were grabbed, not. She didn't move. He kept going. Look at my hands, he said softly. Grease, not blood. No keys to this car. No driver's seat moved, still angled for someone tall. I'm not wearing gloves. I didn't plan anything. I was in the dumpster behind you pulling a bag of Chinese food that smelled like it wasn't dead yet. And I heard you. That's it. Leah's jaw worked. She flicked a glance at the trunk latch and saw the ragged line, where something sharp had chattered across plastic. She saw the little thread of white from the cut cable. She saw the way the temp tag had been taped with crooked edges that didn't quite line up. She backed off a fraction, enough to breathe, enough to think, but not enough to holster the cuffs. What happened? Danny asked, keeping it simple. She swallowed hard, still scanning the deck. Traffic stop near River and 10th. Dark van with a blown right tail. I lit them up. They rolled slow, then fast. I radioed the plate. I got bumped from behind by a second car I didn't see. Airbag, doors came open, tape. That's the last clean moment I had. She looked down at the spider-and bruise on her wrist. Where the hell is my radio? Not on you, he said. What's your status code for officer in trouble? 10 to 33, she said. Then she shook her head once. Radio's gone. Then we make our own, he said, from down in the structure. A van engine turned over low, throaty, not modern. Leah's head snapped toward the ramp. Danny followed her eyes, read the same line. The beige sedan wasn't alone on this level after all. Far side, near the ramp, a white cargo van idled with its lights off, backed into a slot. A shape moved in the driver's window, another in the passenger seat. A third shadow slid along the wall behind them like it knew how to walk quietly. They came back. Leah whispered. They realized the trunk popped on their tracker. Or they forgot something, Danny said. Me. Or the phone they used to grab you. He pointed with his chin at the sedan. Key fob. There's a standard hiding spot. They might want to retrieve whatever they tossed. Leah's eyes flared, then focused. We're not getting pinned here. Move. He moved. She kept the cuffs on him, but shifted them from behind to front in 3 fast motions. So he could run. He didn't argue. He would rather sprint with metal on his wrist than die arguing constitutional points to someone who already had a concussion and a minute of air. Behind them, the van's headlights clicked on, flaring white against beige concrete. The engine revved. Leah grabbed an old red fire extinguisher off the wall, yanked the safety, pressed the lever, and swept a white cloud low and fast across the lane. The powder turned the air into a curtain. Tires squealed on dust. The van fishtailed and overcorrected. Left, she said, hand on his elbow, steering him into the cloud and along the lane stripe where the powder didn't drift as thick. They slid along a blocky concrete pillar and ducked behind a row of parked compacts. Stairs or ramp? He asked. Stairs, she said. If the door is not alarmed, they hit the door. It was the rare kind that wasn't wired at night. Probably because the building manager couldn't be bothered to pay for the monitoring plan. They clattered down one flight, then another. On level 3, a security guard in a windbreaker looked up from his phone and froze. Officer Hart. She snapped, holding up her wrist with the cuff dangling. Officer needs assistance. 1033. Get on the building radio and call the police dispatch. Now. The guard, who had the face of a man brave in moments that didn't count, stammered yes, ma'am, and grabbed his mic. Leah didn't slow. On level 2, a Toyota sat half in, half out of a slot, trunk open. BOXES inside taped with printer paper labels. A roll of thick gray tape lay on the ground. Leah grabbed it, tore a strip with her teeth, and wrapped it over the sharp edges of Danny's cuffs to keep them from cutting his wrist. As they ran, not my first sprint in cuffs, he said, breath less steady than he wanted. Let's hope it's your last, she said, deadpan. And for a second he saw that her humor lived in the same place as did under the bad parts. Waiting, they hit the ground floor and pushed out into the street. Midnight air hit them, cooler than the structure's recycled heat. Jefferson Street was quiet, just a couple bars still open and a bus rolling a late route. Leah scanned left, right, left, saw nobody coming fast, and pulled Danny into the alley that ran behind a line of old brick storefronts. 2 blocks down, a small shelter's side door glowed green with an exit sign. Back entrance, right? Danny said. You know this place? She asked. I know the whole block, he said. I sweep the alley for cans on Tuesdays. Kitchen manager's a straight shooter. Then we try it. They slipped through the prop side door into the shelter's stainless steel kitchen. The night cook looked up from a pot of soup with a wooden spoon in one hand and dead eyes in the other. He took in Leah's torn blouse, Danny's cuffs, the way she moved him like a person, not a prisoner, and nodded once. Office in the back, he said. Phone works. Camera's dead. Don't know why. Been dead a week. We got coffee. Coffee later, Leah said. She guided Danny into the back office, closed the door, and picked up the black desk phone. She dialed from memory and talked on reflex. Dispatch, this is Officer Leah Hart, badge for 312, reporting 10 to 33 earlier at River and 10th. Now off-site. I need a supervisor, 2 cars to Jefferson Garage, possible suspects in white cargo van, and old plates known, temp tag beige sedan used in abduction. I'm at. She looked at the postage sheet. Harbor Mission Kitchen, back office. Send 1 unit from me. No lights, no siren. She hung up, then finally looked directly at Danny, really looked like he was a person and not a variable. Sit. He sat. His hands rested on his knees like he learned to keep them where officers could see them. She leaned on the desk, put her palms flat, and dragged air in until her breathing was even. Okay, she said. Tell me who you are. Daniel Mercer, he said. Danny, I sleep where people don't mind. Lately the back of a church on 7th. Used to live in a house with a big maple and a noisy window AC that rattled in July. Used to be a CEO. Now I'm a guy who knows where people park when they don't want to get noticed. She blinked. A CEO of a company that no longer exists, he said. I know the pattern on your tape because I used to order it by the pallet for warehouse bundles. I know the temp tag glue streak because some cheap printer paper smears when it gets damp. I know how people hide things badly because I spent my life watching people hide things badly. Why are you on the street? She asked. Default cop question, but with less iron in it than usual. Because a man named Victor Sloan called himself my friend, he said. Because I trusted him with a bridge loan and access to my books while I was in the hospital. Because when I got out, the accounts were drained through shell vendors. Loans I never signed were in default, and my board thought I torched my own house. Because my wife couldn't watch it and married someone who made sure I wouldn't get back up. Leah's face didn't change, but her eyes did something small at the word wife. A flicker like a memory brushed the wrong way. She tamped it down. You think Victor Sloan is connected to tonight? She asked. I think Victor Sloan doesn't let variables float, Danny said. I think if you're a young cop with inheritance and a trust that he manages through your mother, you're a variable he'd like to control. Leah's mouth went tight. You don't know anything about my family. No, he said softly. I know about men like Victor. I know how they plan. He would make sure his people had a backup if you didn't sign papers he wanted you to sign. And if he's not involved, then I'm wrong and you still need to find the van. She stared at him for a long second. His eyes were tired but steady. His wrists were raw where the cuffs rubbed, the tape a weird kindness. He looked like the men she walked past on her beat every day, invisible until they weren't. A knock hit the office door. Cops, the cook called through the wood. Blue and white. No siren. Just like you said. Leah cracked the door. Saw 2 uniformed officers, Patel and Mara, standing with the night air still on their jackets, and waved them in. She kept the conversation tight. The grab, the trunk, the pop, the van, the structure. The 10 to 33 call. Patel's eyes went to Danny's cuffs and back to Leah's face. Who's he? Patel asked. The guy who opened the trunk, Leah said. Why is he cuffed? Because I didn't have time to explain things to him during a chase, Leah said, voice flat. Keys. Patel handed them over without a lecture. Leah unlocked Danny's wrist. She pressed the cuffs into Patel's palm and didn't apologize to anybody. Patel's face went from skeptical to professional and stayed there. Supervisor en route to the garage, Mara said. Unit is outside to take you to the ER for scans. I'm not going to the ER yet, Leah said. I'm going to the garage with the supervisor. If I pass out, you can throw me in the ER then. Patel tried to look. Leah gave it right back. Patel let it go. Got anything on the van plate? Leah asked. Nothing yet, Mara said. But there's a camera at the card reader at the exit on level 1. If they came back after they dumped you, they'll be on it. Leah nodded. Pull it. Also check the alley cam behind Jefferson Barber. It's aimed wrong, but it catches the ramp if the wind hit it earlier. Patel whistled a little. Someone knows this block. Leah tipped her chin at Danny. He does. Patel looked at him. Recalibrated. You're coming. I'm a witness, Danny said. I'll point at things. You'll take credit. That's how this goes. Mars almost smiled. Almost. They rolled in quiet, 2 cars, no lights. Leah sat in the back of the first unit, seatbelt on like a point. Danny sat beside her and rested his hands on his knees again. Patel drove. Mars rode shotgun and typed notes. Tell me something that will matter in 5 minutes. Leah said to Danny. 2 things, he said. 1. The van's right taillight was out when they grabbed you and it's probably still out. That rules out half the white vans in a 3-mile radius smart enough not to fix their own felony. 2. The beige sedan's temp tag glue was streaked top left to bottom right. like someone right-handed slapped it on fast. The paper had a tiny diagonal cut on the lower corner. That's not DMV stock. It's from a home printer. That means a guy with a printer and an X-Acto did a bunch of these. That's a stash we can actually find. Patel's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. You sound like Sid. I sound like someone who's been stolen from, Danny said. They swung into the Jefferson structure. A lieutenant's SUV sat at the entrance. Lieutenant Dana Ruiz, hair in a braid tight enough to pass inspection, stood under the fluorescent hum with 2 security guards and a stack of key cards in a rubber band. Leah got out, every muscle protesting, and gave a fast rundown. Ruiz listened without interrupting and without looking at Danny like he was a problem she could solve by moving him. Patel, you and Morris pull the exit camera, Ruiz said. Hart, you're with me. Mercer, is it Mercer? Danny's fine. Danny, you stick with Patel and tell him what to look for. Copy, Patel said. And they split. Leah and Ruiz walked the ramp up to level 4. The fire extinguisher powder still hung low like fog. Footprints smeared through it. The beige sedan was still there, trunk open. Ruiz pulled a pair of nitrile gloves and snapped them on. Don't touch, she said, and then laughed at herself because Leah knew that line. Old habits. Leah leaned in without entering the vehicle space. The trunk's emergency pull was hacked, cable nicked but not severed. A strip of duct tape hung from the side, hair caught in the edge of a single brown strand. Leah's stomach did a slow flip at the thought of her own hair and that metal mouth. Run that hair. Print the trunk edge for touch DNA, Ruiz said to the CSI tech who was already lifting powder. Check the undercarriage for GPS stickers. They're cheap and sticky. People think they're invisible. Leah pointed at the latch. They tried to kill the emergency cable, she said. Ruiz nodded. Amateurs with enough YouTube to be dangerous. On level 1. Patel and Morris found the camera over the exit and pulled the last 3 hours. The white van came and went. The beige sedan never moved. More interesting than the van was the moment 30 minutes earlier when a gray SUV pulled in, drove a slow circle on level 4, then parked in a corner not covered by the main camera. The driver wore a baseball cap and a mask. He got out, walked to the beige, popped the trunk with a fob, looked inside, swore, and slammed it. Freeze that, Patel said. Zoom, plate. The plate on the gray SUV wasn't readable, but the dealership frame around it was. Sloan Luxury Auto West Side. Patel didn't need to be a detective to appreciate a solid coincidence. Lieutenant, he said into the radio. We've got a gray SUV connected to Sloan Luxury Auto swinging past the dump zone 30 back. Ruiz looked at Leah. Leah kept her face still with visible effort. Sloan, Ruiz said. Any relation to Victor Sloan? Leah said. My mother's husband. Silence, but the charged kind. Okay, Ruiz said finally. We do this clean. We don't skip steps. We don't make it personal. Patel, get a still of the driver. Send it. We'll cross-check with DMV photos, dealership employee list, and that license frame list if they've got one. Copy. Leah stared at the beige sedan, willing it to give her a name. A glint on the trunk lip caught her eye. Thin gray paint transfer, where something had scraped the edge hard, not from inside but outside. She stepped closer. The color was a flat industrial gray she recognized from every cheap shelving unit in every budget warehouse in the city. See that? She asked Ruiz. Shelving, Ruiz said. Like a loading bay? Like a bay I've seen, Leah said, the memory snapping into place. Sloan's overflow storage is in a converted garage on Maple, 3 blocks from River and 10th. Industrial gray shelving. Half his tags still smell like spray paint. You've been there. Family dinner, Leah said, and let the sarcasm handle itself. He showed off his humble beginnings. Ruiz's radio burped. Save anyone from answering that. Hart, Patel said, voice in her ear. Dispatch says your 10 to 33 was logged. Units responded. Saw nothing at River and 10th. They're canvassing traffic cams now. Copy, Leah said. She swallowed. Her throat still tasted like tape. Patel again. Also, we found a partial plate on the white van from the exit cam. 6L7. Something. We'll run permutations. Morris chimed in. And the SUV driver hat, mask. The posture says taller guy, late 40s maybe, broad shoulders. Could be the big man himself. Could be some guy he pays, Ruiz said. Let's not pretend the camera solves it. Leah nodded. Her head pounded like her brain didn't trust the architecture of this night. She looked down at her wrist. The tape Danny had wrapped to cushion the cuffs left a faint adhesive print. She peeled it off, slowly, careful not to tear skin. "Get scanned," Ruiz said, gentler than her usual. "You can run a lead after you make sure you don't have a bleed in your head." Leah's jaw set. "After we swing by one place." "Which?" "My mother's house," she said. "She's not answering her phone. If Victor sent someone to get me, he'll double back to make sure the paper trail looks clean. I need to see her face. I need her to see mine." Ruiz didn't like it and didn't fight it. "2 cars, no siren, tied in, tied out," she said. "And Hart, don't talk to Sloan. Not yet. I want him to stew in whatever you've just put in motion." Leah nodded and walked toward the stairs. On the landing, Danny waited with Patel, a paper cup of shelter coffee in his left hand. He looked at her wrist, at her face, at the way she moved like all her muscles were one bad idea from locking up, and he shifted his weight like he might step toward her, and then didn't. "Thank you," she said, brief and quiet, and watched the words hit him like warm water on cold hands. He nodded once. "I didn't do it for you," he said, a terrible line delivered like a true one. "I did it because someone was banging a trunk and nobody else heard." "Come with us," she said. "Am I invited? You're a witness. And if your mother recognizes me..." She blinked. "From what?" He took a breath he hadn't planned to take. "From before." "Before what?" "Before I learned how to tell the difference between what you can fix and what you can just carry." Leah stared at him for a second that lasted too long for comfort, then turned and kept moving. Patel followed, hand at his radio, eyes scanning the gray. Martha Hart lived in a brick colonial on a quiet block with big trees and little dogs. Leah had grown up on those stoop steps drawing chalk cities for toy cars, while her mother drank iced tea out of a chipped mug. Tonight the stoop was clean, the porch light on, and the front window glowed with the warm rectangle of a TV on low. The neighborhood slept like nothing bad happened in the world. Leah took the lead up the walk. She didn't knock. She opened the door with her key and called Mom. Loud enough to carry, not loud enough to wake the neighbors. No answer. "Martha?" She tried again, moving into the living room. The TV showed some home renovation show nobody ever finished watching. On the coffee table, a glass of wine. On the arm of the couch, a folded throw. In the kitchen, a plate with 2 bites of chicken left. The back door was locked from the inside. Upstairs, the door to the master bedroom was closed. Leah climbed the stairs. Her legs felt like they were pushing against sand. She knocked on the bedroom door. "Mom, it's me." A voice inside, groggy, confused. "Leah, honey? Why are you?" The door opened. Martha Hart, hair mussed, eyes puffy with sleep, took one look at Leah's wrist and the tape marks and the bruises rising from under the skin, and went white. "What happened?" she gasped, pulling Leah into the room with urgent hands. "What happened to you?" Leah, who had planned to be calm, felt her throat close. "I got grabbed," she said. "I'm okay." "I got out." Martha's eyes filled fast. Oh God, Leah squeezed her hands. "Where's Victor?" Martha blinked, a beat too long. "He's at the office," she said. "He said he was working late, something about an inventory check." "At midnight?" Leah said, flat. "You know how he is," Martha said. "Something defensive and practice sliding into place." Leah nodded once and let it go for now. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer without thinking about how it will sound." She said, "Did you sign anything with Victor this month? Anything about the trust? About me?" Martha's eyes darted to the nightstand and back. The smallest towel in the world. Leah opened the drawer. Inside, a thick envelope with Sloan Family Trust printed on the front, a pen. A sticky note with dates. Leah pulled the documents and flipped fast. There it was, a proposed amendment to the trust that shifted certain assets in the event of Leah's incapacitation into a discretionary subtrust managed entirely by Victor. "Sloan," Leah's stomach turned to. "Stone, you didn't sign this," she said. More plea than question. Martha's chin trembled. "I didn't sign without you," she said. "He said it was just contingency planning. I said I wouldn't sign anything you hadn't seen." "Leah, what happened? Why are there police downstairs? Why is there a man in the hallway?" She moved, trying to see past Leah to the stairs. Leah stepped aside. Danny stood at the top of the stairs, an officer behind him. He had stopped on the landing like he had bumped into a force field. Martha saw him and went very still, the way people do when a past they have outlawed under their own roof walks in wearing a beard and a coat they'd never let touch their furniture. Her hand went to her mouth. She didn't speak for a full 5 seconds, and in those 5 seconds Leah watched her mother's face change into 3 younger faces, and one older one she had seen once in a picture in a showbox under a bed. Danny, Martha said. Finally, the name cracking like old paint. Oh my God. Leah looked from her to him and felt the room tip. Mom, she said, careful. Each word its own step. Who is he? Martha's hand shook. She put it down. She looked at Leah, then at Danny, then back. He's your father, she said. Leah stared at Martha like she'd just learned her own name was a lie. The floor felt soft. The air felt thin. She had known a man named Richard Hart as dad, a man who died when she was 6, a man whose photos had lived on the mantel in frames that never collected dust. She had never heard the name Daniel Mercer in her house. Not once. Mom, Leah said, her voice tiny and furious in the same breath. What are you talking about? It's complicated, Martha said. The most cowardly line in English when it arrives late. Start simple, Leah said. Start with yes or no. Martha swallowed. Yes, she said. Danny is your biological father. Silence mapped the room, built walls, opened doors, downstairs. Patel coughed once to remind the house that other people existed. Leah ignored the world. How long have you known Victor? She asked. Since after, Martha said. After everything burned down. After you thought I torched my own life, Danny said. Not with anger, but with a grief he had filed and refiled and could quote from memory. Martha flinched. I was told you'd done it to yourself, she said. That you? That you had a breakdown. Victor said a lot of things, Danny said. Leah held up the trust documents. Victor is trying to put language in here that pays him if I'm hurt or worse, she said. Somebody grabbed me tonight, put me in a trunk, drove me around. The van came back for the car. We have the dealership frame from a gray SUV with Sloane's name on it circling the drop site. That's what happened tonight. Martha shook her head hard, denial like a reflex. No, she said. Victor's not. He's not a criminal. He is when he needs to be, Danny said. Leah exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since the trunk. She laid the trust packet on the bedspread like evidence. She took her mother's phone from the nightstand, scrolled, found Victor's last text, running late. Don't wait up, and set it face down. She turned to Martha. I'm going to ask you for one more thing, she said. I need a picture of you and Danny, anything. Martha stared like she might break. Then she crossed to the closet, pulled down a storage box, and opened it. Photos slid like paperfish. She fished one out and handed it over without looking. Leah recognized her mother younger by 25 years, hair long, eyes bright. Next to her, a younger Danny with a clean jaw, a suit that fit, a hand on Martha's shoulder, a watch on his wrist. Leah's throat tightened. The watch on Danny's wrist in the picture matched the broken one on his wrist now. The face cracked at the minute hand, stopped at 2:17. What happened to the watch? Leah asked. Because you ask small questions when big ones will drown you. Day I got told the board had voted me out, I smashed it against a wall, Danny said. Then I kept it anyway. Leah held the photo in her left hand and her badge in her right like twin weights. She set both down. She turned to Martha. I need you to do exactly what I say, she said. You don't call Victor. You don't text him. You don't answer if he calls. You don't post. You don't share. You sit tied here with an officer until I give you the all clear. Do you understand me? Martha nodded, tears standing. Yes. Leah looked at Danny. You and I are going to pay a friendly visit to Sloan Luxury Auto's overflow storage, she said. You'll stand where I tell you and shut up when I tell you. Reasonable, he said. Patel raised a cautionary hand. Lieutenant said tight in, tight out. She reminded. We'll be tight, Leah said. And we'll be wired. She took a slim recorder from her jacket, the backup she bought after a domestic call went sideways. Last year, and her body can battery died at the worst moment. She clipped it inside her torn blouse and checked the red lead. She sent a text to Ruiz. Going to Maple Storage. Audio lived to this phone. 1033. If dead air. Copy. Ruiz replied in under 10 seconds. 2 cars on standby. Leah looked at her reflection in the hall mirror. She saw the bruises rising like small storms, the tape marks, the grit in her hair, the steadiness in her eyes. She looked like a person she didn't know and liked anyway. On the way out, Martha stopped at the top of the stairs. "Leah," she said softly, "please be careful." Leah nodded without looking back. "I will, Mom, outside." The night had cooled another few degrees. The air smelled like wet lawn and someone's late sprinkler schedule. Leah got behind the wheel of her own car, a 10-year-old sedan with a clean inside and a sticky cup holder. Danny slid into the passenger seat like he wasn't sure he deserved a passenger seat. Patel took her uni. Mars followed Dot as they rolled toward Maple. Leah put the plan into the night like she was laying track in front of the wheels. "We don't confront," she said. "We observe. We get plates, faces, timestamps. If Victor shows, we do not tip. We collect. We back out. Then we bring a warrant." "Understood," Danny said. "If we get boxed, you drive," he said. "I throw." "Throw what?" "Whatever costs them time." She glanced at him. "You always talk like that." "Only when it matters," he said. The storage building sat low and long behind chain link. A cinder block afterthought with a roll-up door and a keypad. Tonight the roll-up door was down. The keypad blinked a green dot that meant paid-up access. A single light burned over the side entrance like someone cared how it looked to a passing cop. Leah killed her headlights half a block away and parked behind a landscaping truck. She touched the recorder through her blouse once, felt the haptic buzz that meant it was still streaming, and exhaled. "Ready?" she asked. "No," Danny said. "Do it anyway." They stepped into the soft dark of Maple Street. 2 shadows and a plan. Not a great plan, not a full plan, but a plan that had moved more honest miles than most. Halfway down the block, the gray SUV from the garage turned the corner slow, like it owned the intersection. Leah's heart walked up into her mouth. The SUV rolled to a stop in front of the cinder block building. The driver's door opened. A man in a dark jacket and a baseball cap got out and looked up and down the street. The way people who think they're invincible look fast and sloppy. Leah's hand closed hard on Danny's sleeve. She could see the man's posture and silhouette against the light. Broad shoulders. The little roll in his right foot from a high school injury that still lived in family stories. The way his head tilted when he thought about cameras. "Victor," she mouthed, and felt the recorder humming against her chest like a second heart. The man typed a code. The side door clicked. He went inside. Leah's phone buzzed. Ruiz, a single word, "Hold." Leah ignored it. For the first time since the trunk, she smiled without meaning to. Not a good smile. A hard one. "Let's get his confession," she whispered. Danny looked at her, then at the door, then at the empty street, then back at her again. He didn't say don't. He didn't say yes. He just nodded like a man who had found a trunk in the dark and opened it. Knowing the metal could bite, they moved. And everything that had been implied by the ugly rhythms of the night greed, betrayal, the careful arithmetic of other people's lives stood up, turned on the light, and waited. Asterisk Leah and Danny slipped along the cinder block wall, keeping low under the spill of the single security light. The side door's jamb had a fresh nick where keys had scraped paint 100 times. Leah pressed close, angled her head, and listened. Inside, a roll-up door motor, distant, then a clank, and the hollow echo of someone setting a metal box on concrete. She pointed the fingers to her eyes, then at Danny, then at the door watch. "Quiet, ready." He nodded. She tried the handle. It turned. No alarm chirp. Either Victor trusted the neighborhood, or he trusted himself. They went in. The air smelled like tires and cold oil. The roll-up door was still down. Tall gray shelving units lined the walls. Each had white paper labels pinned under clear tape. Filters, detail, tags, wash kit, night drop. The gray paint on the corner shelf matched the flake Leah had seen on the sedan's trunk. A caged office sat in the far corner. A desk lamp glowed inside it. Victor Sloan stood at the desk, back half-turned, laptop open. Sleeves rolled to the forearm like he expected a camera. 2 men in black hoodies moved around the roll-up door, one coiling a cable, the other sorting through a plastic tote full of adhesive license frames. Leah recognized the dealership logo. Victor looked up at the motion and instinct. Not a sound then stilled when he saw Leah through the cage mesh. He didn't startle. He smiled like a man who knew which year's tax rules favored his bracket. Leah, he said, warm. Jesus. I just heard. Are you okay? Your mother called me. She said you were with her. What are you? Don't, Leah said. Her voice came out flat and clear. Keep your hands where I can see them. Victor raised both palms, friendly, mock compliant. He glanced once, quick, at the camera dome in the corner of the ceiling. Danny followed his eyes. The dome's power light was on, but a thin gap yawned along the access panel. Like someone had popped it loose and slid an SD card half out. Leah took 2 steps closer to the cage. Where's the gray SUV from Jefferson Garage, Victor? He chuckled, small, controlled. I have many vehicles, he said. That's the business. Where's the white cargo van? Also a business vehicle. Where were they at midnight? Leah, he said gently, hand out like he could pat her shoulder through the mesh. You've had a shock. Let me call Marty. We can sit. She cut him off. 2 men grabbed me at River and 10th. They taped me, jammed my radio, threw me in a trunk. A gray SUV with your dealership frame circled the dump spot. The trunk shows shelving paint. Your shelving. You cut the emergency cable and botched it. Your van came back. You sent them to finish something they started and messed up. Victor's face didn't move. Only his eyes did, tiny, calculating flicks to the 2 men by the roll-up door, to the laptop, to the camera dome again. Leah, he said. Sigh soft. I know you're angry, but listen to yourself. You're taking care of your mother. You're a beat cop with good instincts. Don't ruin your, say it, she said, stepping to the cage, voice low now, not for the room, for the wire under her blouse. Say you had me taken. Silence. The 2 men in hoodies glanced at each other. One scratched his jaw, lifted a cable, set it back. The sound of his fingernail on the zip tie felt to loud. Victor exhaled, slow. He changed posture, shoulders squaring, the sales pitch gone. You're not important to me, he said. Tone shifting from neighborly to transactional. I had a trust to protect. Your mother signs what I put in front of her because I take care of things she doesn't want to think about. You are a disruption. You always have been. You get in fights. You don't listen. You don't know how to stay home. I told her the city isn't safe for a girl like you. A girl like me. Leah said, the words catching and sharpening. A cop who wants to be a hero, he said. Heroes end up on the news. They complicate paperwork. They expose families to scrutiny. That's very expensive. Cheaper to put me in a trunk, Leah said. Victor's smile came back, colder. Cheaper to let bad things happen to careless people, he said. You got in your car. You didn't see the van behind you. You didn't call for backup fast enough. You got bumped. You got taken. And yes, when I learned someone had you, I didn't rush to intervene. Because outcomes can be beneficial. Leah took it, let it land, kept her face still. Her recorder hummed against her sternum, a steady, tiny vibration. She asked one more thing. The one thing that would cut any claim he was just observing. Did you call anyone tonight? She said. To check whether I was still breathing. Victor's eyes flicked left. His jaw moved once. No, he said. Thank you, Leah said. The man by the roll-up door made a decision out loud. He pulled a short-barrel shotgun from behind a stack of tires and raised it. Danny moved before Leah could. He swept a box of adhesive frames off a shelf and pitched it hard, full into the man's chest. The frames hit, fanned, and the man flinched and fired wide. The blast punched a hole in the roll-up door, and the building swallowed the sound, and gave it back to beats later. Leah dropped, pulled the hood of a trash cart between them and the muzzle, and rolled the cart hard. The second man lunged for her through the dusting shower of paper and plastic. Danny clipped him at the knees with the corner of the cart. The man crashed into the shelf. Gray paint flaked. A tote fell, cracked, and spilled temp tags like confetti. Victor bolted for the cage door. Hand out for a switch under the desk. Leah saw the arc of his shoulder and knew he was going to kill the camera feed or pop the roll-up. Asterisk don't, she said, and fired one bark from Patel's service pistol. Patel had passed it to her in the driveway, like they had rehearsed it into the fluorescent above the desk. The bulb shattered. The cage went dim. Sparks spit like bad fireworks. Victor stumbled, hit the desk, and the laptop slid, skidding just far enough for Danny to see the open window and a mail draft to MH with the subject line's signature. and a PDF labeled heart_amendment_final to .pdf attached ** police. Patel's voice belted from the door, crisp, amplified by the concrete. Drop it, hands. The man with the shotgun turned, muzzle rising. Leah steadied, aimed low, and put a round into the concrete at the man's feet. Chip snapped. He jumped, lost grip. The shotgun clanged to the floor and skittered out of reach. Mara swept in from the side, weapon drawn, and pinned the first man to the concrete with a knee and a zip tie. Victor grabbed a glass paperweight from the desk and hurled it at Leah. She ducked. The paperweight smashed the recorder's red lead cover. The recorder buzzed once, still streaming, and Leah felt a rush of grateful anger at good hardware. Danny, who had learned how to read movements in rooms where he didn't count, slid along the shelf, reached up, and popped the SD card from the camera dome housing with the multi-tool. He never put back in his pocket. He held it like a coin he might lose if he thought about it. Leah pushed into the cage, weapon up. Victor's hands came up, slow, calculated. Patel pushed past Leah and took them, turned and cuffed Victor with brisk, practice motions that didn't care who he sold cars to on weekends. You're under arrest. Patel said. You can work out the charges with the DA. Start with kidnapping. Add conspiracy. We'll keep going. Victor laughed, low, ugly. You have nothing, he said. You have a blurry video and a broken girl's story. Leah stepped into his space until the mesh of the cage was at her shoulder, and the smell of his aftershave hit her expensive cedar. Trying too hard. We have your words, she said. All of them? Ruse's voice cut through from the door, calm and edged. And we have counsel listening because somebody smart ran live audio up the chain, she said. She stood with the detectives behind her, one already bagging the fallen shotgun, the other snapping photos of the tote spill with the dealership frames and the printed temp tags. That matched the exact diagonal tier Leah had described. Victor's expression changed for the first time, something like the shadow of doubt, crossing a theater set. Counsel, he said. City Attorney's Office heard enough to greenlight a hard warrant on this address and your home. Ruiz said, and we've got a judge on the line who really hates trunk kidnappings. Mars brought the second man around, flex cuffs on, sullen and winded. The man muttered about lawyers. Mars didn't respond. Leah holstered. Her hands were shaking now, finally, the adrenaline slipping its leash, but her voice stayed steady. She looked around the cage. The desk had a drawer ajar. Inside, a small stack of phones, cheap, burner models, a plastic bag with a strip of gray tape already cut, a roll of nylon ties, same brand, same width as the one she'd felt biting her wrist. Danny slid the SD card into a paper evidence envelope without being asked. He handed it to Ruiz. Good eyes, Ruiz said. I've watched too many men pull too many cards, Danny said. Ruiz nodded once, thanks, acknowledgement, moved and turned to Leah. Ambulance is on the way, she said. You're scanned and checked before I let you write anything. That's not a suggestion. Leah wanted to argue and didn't. I need one thing first, she said, and pointed at the laptop. That email. The draft to MH. A detective stepped in, took photos of the screen, then hit print. The laser printer on the floor chunked to life and spit a page. The subject line stared up from the paper the way paper does when it's going to be in a courtroom. Signature. Leah held the print flat, looked at Victor, and said, MH is my mother. You were about to send her final papers to sign tonight. Victor lifted his chin like a man demonstrating posture. I was doing what needed to be done, he said. What needed to be done? Leah repeated, not a question. The EMS crew hustled into the building, big bags and bright gloves. Faces already mapping Leah's bruises like they were reading a report. One checked her pupils, shined a light, asked her to track a finger, asked about nausea. She answered. The floor steadied and faded and steadied again. She let them take her blood pressure. She let them fold the foil blanket over her shoulders like a cape she hadn't asked for. As they worked, Ruiz ran the scene clean. To evidence techs vacuumed the trunk of the beige sedan for trace. One marked a line of gray paint flecks along the shelf and bagged a flake. Another collected the tote of temp tags. Patel ran the keypad access log and snapped the handwritten code. Stuck under the desk blotter, 2459 asterisk in Victor's blocky hand. Mars found a small black box magnet stuck under the sedan's rear bumper, a cheap GPS tracker. blinking at a steady rhythm, like a heart to proud. Ruiz turned to Danny. You coming to the station to give a statement? She asked. Tone that assumed yes. Yes, he said. After he gets his wrist cleaned, Leah said, nodding at the raw circles. She spoke to the EMS tech on her left. And after he gets something for that, whatever that is, I'll put a little ointment on it. The tech said, no stitches. You both got lucky tonight. Danny looked at Leah. Luck is boring math, he said. We finally did some. They loaded Victor and his 2 men into separate cars. As they walked Victor out, he tried one last play. He turned to Leah, spoke low enough to seem private, loud enough to be recorded. You think you know who you are, he said. You think this, he gestured at the badge, at the bruises, makes you moral. You're just a girl who wants to be loved by a mother who never loved anyone properly. Leah looked at him, unblinking. You're just a man who thought paperwork could replace people, she said. It can't. They took him. At the hospital, Leah sat under a bright rectangle of light and stared at a drop of iodine blooming on her skin. A doctor ordered scans, read a CT, told her there was no bleed, told her to sleep, told her to drink water and avoid driving for a day. She nodded at all the right times. When the doctor left, she sat very still and let the room hum. Danny sat in the chair by the wall, hands folded, a disposable cup of water in his lap. He looked smaller in the bright room than he had in the warehouse, like the light pressed him into his edges. He didn't speak until she looked at him. When she did, he held her gaze like it cost him something. When did you know? She asked. Know what? That I was. That we were. He took a breath. I didn't know, he said. I guessed. Tonight. When you said your mother's husband was Victor. When I saw your face in the hall of the house. That look, I've seen it before. Smaller. On you? In a frame on a mantel I was told to walk past. She rubbed the heel of her palm over her eye. Mom said Richard Hart was my father. Danny looked down at the floor tile like he could read a pattern there that would help. Richard Hart married your mother, he said. I didn't fight him. I was sick and broke and angry and full of pride. I told myself walking away was noble because I would just pull them down if I stayed. That's the lie I let pay my rent for a long time. Leah didn't know what to do with the heat in her chest. It had nowhere to go. You could have come back, she said. At any point. You could have knocked on the door. You could have written a letter. You could have stood on the sidewalk and waited for me to come out of school. I could have. He said. I didn't. I don't get to ask you to forgive that. I can only not lie about it now. She sat with that for a while. The EMR beeped at a slow, indifferent pace. Out in the hall a cart rattled. Somewhere a TV talked about weather. Are you clean? She asked. Off everything. I drink coffee, he said. I take ibuprofen when I can find it. I haven't stuck a needle in my arm or a bottle in my throat in a long time. She nodded once. Too slow to be casual. Good. He shifted in the chair. I didn't save you to make a point, he said. I didn't even know it was you. I heard a person in a trunk. That's all I needed. I know, she said. They didn't say anything else until Ruiz came in with Patel and a thin file. Ruiz set it on the rolling table and tapped it. Good news, she said. Video card in the camera shows our Tahuti friend's loading tape and ties into the beige sedan. An hour before Leah was grabbed. The exit cam has the white VIN twice with the right taillight out both times. The gray SUV shows here, here, and here. Judge signed the warrants. We pulled Vic's home server. IT is imaging it now. The draft amendment to the trust matches the print Leah found. There's even a rough script in a folder called Contingency that reads like a very stupid man. Practicing a eulogy, Leah let out air she didn't know she still had. Patel added, Your mom's safe. Officer Rios is with her. She cried, then slept. I made sure the alarm works. Thanks, Leah said. The word scratched its way out of her throat and still sounded like what it meant. Ruiz turned to Danny. You gave a clean statement, she said. Thank you. You're going to get asked to testify. You up for that? He swallowed. Yes. Good. And, Mr. Mercer. Danny, Ruiz said, softer. There's a city program that can put you in a room that locks and give you a small paycheck. For facility work while this shakes out, I can put your name top of the pile. It's not charity. It's a contract. You in? He didn't look at Leah. He didn't look at the floor. He looked at Ruiz and said, "Yes." A week later, Victor Sloan was indicted on kidnapping, conspiracy, attempted murder, fraud, and a scattershot of business crimes that sounded boring until you realized how much bloodless damage they did. His 2 hired men pled fast. One cried on his stand. Victor didn't. He hired lawyers who wore watches like townhouses, and he wore the same posture in court he wore in showrooms. It didn't matter. The recordings, the camera card, the tote of temp tags, the trust drafts paper, and pixels in the end always talk better than men do. Martha sat on the front bench every hearing. The first week she didn't look at anyone. The second week she looked at Leah with an expression that was fear and apology crushed together. The third week she asked Danny if he wanted tea. He said yes. They stood in her kitchen and stared at a mug like it was a complicated device. She asked if he needed sugar. He said no. It wasn't a reconciliation. It was a beginning at a table instead of a courtroom. That counted. Leah took 2 weeks off, burned through her sick time and her personal days, and came back to the precinct with a new way of walking, same speed, different center of gravity. She thanked Patel in a short voice. She hugged Ruiz in a long one. She wrote her report like the page mattered, and it did. At the end she added a line the admin didn't ask for. The subject's survival and the scene's resolution were significantly aided by a civilian witness who heard a distress signal when no one else did. Ruiz let the line stand. Danny moved into a small room in a municipal building that had once been a school. He fixed a loose hinge on his second night there because he couldn't stand the noise. He swept the stairwell because no one else had. And then someone in the office noticed and added stairwell sweep moan through to a printed list with his name at the top. He drank coffee in a paper cup in the morning and put his backpack in a closet and locked the door and slept 3 hours in a row, then 5, then 6. On a Thursday at dusk, Leah stood on the Jefferson Street upper deck, looking at the spot where the beige sedan had sat with its lit to millimeters proud. The extinguisher dust had been mopped away weeks ago. The only sign anything had ever happened, there was a rectangle of slightly cleaner concrete, where the sedan's tires had shielded the floor from grime. She stood at the rectangle, hands in jacket pockets, and let the evening traffic sigh below her. Footsteps came up the ramp soft. She didn't stiffen. Danny stood a respectful distance away. "Mom made pie," she said without looking at him. "It wasn't good." She tried. "Pie doesn't have to be good," he said. "It just has to be pie." She laughed, small and surprised. "That sounds like a bumper sticker my partner would make fun of." "I don't have a car," he said. "So I'm safe?" They were quiet for a beat. Leah spoke first. "I'm angry," she said. "I don't know it. Who, me?" he said. "Her, him. The shape of your life. That brick. Pick any." "I'll pick all," she said. "For a while." "Fair," he said. She turned, looked at him full on. "I don't know what this is supposed to be," she said. "I know we're not jumping to Christmas. I know you don't get to call yourself dad because of a trunk. But I also know I'm walking around in a world where you exist. And that fact doesn't feel wrong." He nodded like he'd been handed a fragile thing and told not to drop it. "That's more than I deserve," he said. "It's what I've got," she said. She stuck out a hand. He looked at it like he remembered how to do this and shook it. Her grip was firm and human. "Come on," she said, turning toward the stairs. "There's a diner by the station. Coffee's terrible. Pancakes are okay. We can sit. We cannot talk. We can decide later whether to talk." "Okay," he said. The words steadier than his hands, they walked down into the noise of the city. Not saved, not healed, not solved, but altered, in ways paper couldn't catch. A month later, the trust was unwound. The house stayed in Martha's name. Leah named a different trustee for the inheritance she hadn't wanted, and now understood she had to shepherd. Victor sold cars in a courtroom testimony about asset forfeiture instead of a showroom. And then he didn't sell cars anywhere at all. Danny got a municipal ID. He put maintenance under occupation. He kept the broken watch, face cracked at 217. But he stopped looking at it when the sun came up and when it went down. He checked the hinges on the shelter door on Tuesdays out of habit, even when the schedule moved to Wednesday. Sometimes he and Leah sat in his building's small garden and didn't talk and didn't need to. Sometimes they talked about boring things: the price of eggs, a neighbor's loud TV, the difference between bright sun and good light. Once she asked him for 10 minutes about his old company, and he gave her 20 quiet minutes. And no complaints and no excuses. Once he asked her about her training officer in the academy, and she told him a story about a push-up bet that made him laugh hard enough to cough. On a Sunday morning in October, a white van with a fixed right taillight rolled past a playground slow, then kept going. Leah watched it from a bench and felt the world tilt toward ordinary in a way she could live in. She tossed a rubber ball back to a kid who missed a catch. Across the street, Danny raked leaves into a pile that looked like a plan and not a chore. The city, noisy and flawed in theirs, went on. That was the point. Not the drama, the going on.